Welcome, everyone. Welcome to What Just Happened. Today, we're going to talk about the rise and rise of retail media networks. And we have two great guests, Brian Gleason and Kristi Arjulan. Hi, guys.
Hello, Christine.
Hey, Christine. Great to be here.
Wonderful. Kristi, super excited and can't wait to get into the discussion.
Yeah, and Christine, thanks for having me today. Always happy to share my story in terms of what I'm up to, especially in regards to retail media, and also to be here with Brian. I came up through the media business on the advertising agency side. And have always either worked at creative agencies and was responsible for media strategy, or eventually made the leap to one of the media holdcos with media brands. I have run media for amazing businesses, everything from Schwab to Got Milk to Microsoft. Have done things very local and I've done things very global. I was plucked from the media agency side and actually went to Target and ran the media measurement, social, experiential, yada, yada, all of that. And then there was this new thing that was starting to emerge when the media people started to recognize the amount of really valuable assets that retailers owned that would be of great importance to the media industry. And that's especially our first party data and our ability to show that our customers, our audiences, were actually buying products. So it wasn't a, did I get all my impressions? I was actually able to prove outcomes. Was tapped to build Roundel at Target. And did that for a handful of years. That business grew to a very important strategic priority to Roundel. Left there and am now at Albertsons and building the retail media business there as well. And at Albertsons, that was a capability that was outsourced, was tasked with pulling it in-house and really building a retail media capability or business that sits within the top 5 to 7 retail media networks out there. So we are on a fast tear to be one of the top retail media networks in the business.
And your partner in crime, in order to accomplish all of those goals. Oh, look, just happens to be here. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Christine. How are you?
So look at you guys doing all the things. Why don't you give us a update how Criteo ended up in the space as well, or at least, under your domain, so to speak.
Sure, it's fun. Like as Kristi goes through her story, it's amazing. As I was thinking back, our paths have intertwined for almost 25 years. So as Kristi went along and was a trailblazer and continues to be, I was fortunate enough to be on the other side of that in various roles. I started off in publishing. So I worked for a company called Ziff Davis and became a publisher, which was fascinating at that time because it was a transformation. You're thinking about the late 90s where digital started to become at the forefront. We had a physical asset. You had valuable assets inside of our organization, very similar to how a retailer does. And when digital came about, we had to transform and rethink our entire models and go across that journey. And spent the next 15 years or so doing that. Spent some time on a true technology side with a company called EMC, which was bought by Dell. And that was fascinating as well to do a deep dive into tech sales and how it's properly sold and the integration. And then came back to the agency and spent 10 years at Group M as the Global Chief Commercial Officer and got a chance to work alongside Kristi at Target and many other brands in that journey. And in doing so, I saw how the dynamics in media changed. You saw the birth of first Google and search and how that transformed our business. Then we saw Meta and every other one that followed on that in social. And the third frontier was really around commerce and specifically retail media. And it was a slower start. Amazon, I think, began to get into that space in 2008, 2007. And it was slow as they were getting their footing underneath them. But probably around the time of 2015, it wasn't only Amazon, it was companies, because we had a global footprint. You would see Alibaba, Rakuten in Asia, who developed very quickly. But the traditional retailers like Albertsons really hadn't started to take advantage of that. A lot of retailers had a foundation, but hadn't brought to scale. Kristi was doing it at Target and around Dell. But you saw this maturity cycle that we still see today. And I had thought there was an opportunity to do what Google did for search, which was make it easy, do what Meta did for social, which is make it easy. And there was an ambition from my side to say, how do we make it easy for retail media? And Criteo was best positioned in terms of having a global footprint. We'd been in commerce for 10 years, 15 years at that point, starting in 2005. But retail media, from a foundational or enablement standpoint, was there for the taking. And when I joined, I think we had 130 retailers. We're up to almost 230 retailers, 2,200 brands. So I love the title of the podcast, The Rise and Rise of Retail Media. I still think we're just in the beginning of this. Like it is a massive industry that completely transforms, even more so than what search did and what social did, just by how fast you see retail media reaching 40 billion. I think we did it twice as fast as social and 3 times as fast as search. So it's amazing to see how this media fundamentally changes the business. And it's great to partner with people like Kristi and others to help bring it to the forefront.
Brian, I need you to stop talking because you basically answered every single one of my questions. We're done.
I get excited.
Like,
I get excited.
Oh my God. I'm like, oh, in my head, I'm like, okay, not that. Oh gosh, dead air.
We can go deep on each one of them.
We'll go, yeah, we'll have to dig in a little bit.
Yep.
What I do want to start with is because you both have different perspectives. So I want both of your perspectives. I want you to take me in the room where the light bulb went off, where it was like, wait a minute, we actually have something here. We have something that people actually want. And I'm not talking about apples in a bushel on an aisle 8. You're talking about a real asset. I have this Scorsese movie, 70s music playing in the background, like visual happening, but was there this slow motion looking up from a chart, everyone looking at each other? Wow. Like what was the light bulb moment? Kristi, we'll start with you because you really were in those rooms, and then we'll go to Brian.
I will say probably one key light bulb moment was the day that Amazon started to release their ad revenue information. And I think on that day, every CFO at a retailer thought, wait a minute, there's a lot of really healthy margin in the business that then actually helps support a lot of the other investment that retailers need to make in order to be able to continue to be a healthy business overall. So that was a big part of it. And I think that was a big light bulb moment. The advertising business, retail media in particular, is very different from the fundamentals of retail. And so to have the leadership understand the value of retail media, not only for how we can better serve our customers, how we can better serve our manufacturers, but also what can it bring to the company so that the company can continue to evolve at the fast pace that it needs to in order to be able to continue to serve our customers as best as possible and reflect their digital shopping and really all the different ways they want to shop. But when you think of how retailers need to continue to evolve and have the right to evolve, for retailers, I'd call it a dimmer switch, and the dimmer switch was getting pumped up. You're now seeing things like alternative growth, alternative profit, alternative something, a new capability that is actually starting to report to the CEO within retailers now. So there is an understanding that as a result of how shoppers are shopping more digitally, there are byproducts that actually have a lot of great value, not only for customers, because we can serve them better and serve them information and ads that they want, but also it's creating these new revenue streams for retailers that are very attractive in the marketplace right now. And now that the C-suite is starting to understand what it means when cookies come out of the marketplace and who's got scaled data that the media industry can now transact off of, like that's where all the light bulbs are coming on. And I guess that's where the dimmer switch is all the way up to the top.
And the American retail landscape is not really like the first adopters, the quick to market with new things. And so there's usually a lot of hesitation and value add evaluation. And that's not a criticism. It's just usually quite slow. So that really does make more sense. It's not as dramatic as my Scorsese setting, but yeah, the dimmer going up is probably more accurate. Also, when you're leading with large revenues and the possibility of those revenues, real tangible, real probable revenues, that can move that dimmer switch up pretty quickly compared to other tech adoption.
The other thing that happens is if you think of how trade allowances have worked over time, the paper circular, and where the revenue went for those, there's a lot of change management that has to happen in terms of how people are goaled and what is a victory versus it's just realigning priorities and goals within a company so that some of the old metrics start to evolve so that they reflect a more modern way that our customers are shopping now.
Brian?
I'll go back to it. I wish you did the sound effects and the music all the way through the podcast. I think that could be something special. I probably had three that I'll highlight at different periods of time. The first one was probably in 2017 or so, when working in an agency, you're always looking at your client's media allocation. And in many of them, the largest CPG to traditional linear television always took such a significant chunk. And you'd have search and meta and some other things. But in 17, I was looking at our allocation for one of our largest CPG brands and saw that retail media at that point, even that was 7 years ago, tipped over 30 or 35% of overall spend, which totally caught me off guard because I had known that this was significant, but I wasn't dealing with it every day. So it was all a top-down moment. And it was a light bulb to say, okay, at that time, a lot of that was still on Amazon, but there were so many things out there. And it was the performance that drove that spend. It was listening to the CMO at the time saying, I said, why is it going so far in this direction? He said, we see things here that we can't see anywhere else, which was a light bulb. The second one was last year, and I think it was Walmart CFO who came out. You think about Walmart just as a retailer, obviously they have scale, but it was when their CFO said, hey, listen, in 4 years, we're going to make more profit off of our retail media business than we will in the goods sold in our stores. That was a light bulb where it fundamentally changes. You think about the largest distribution from a retailer in the US physically, it's going to make more money off of them. The third, Kristi was just talking to, retail media has been around for a long time in the store, whether it was the end cap, whether it was things that we saw, but it was all run in this way, and still is in many ways, that it's spreadsheet driven. And you start to think about the possibilities of connecting in-store to a digital world. I think we're getting digital and we're expanding well, but to connect that to the in-store was another light bulb. We're like, oh my God, I didn't think of this, or look at this, which is the exciting part of sitting in the middle of a rapidly growing business.
We still see our shoppers, 80% of our total sales are through our physical stores, but they're shopping us digitally when they're in those stores.
It's like what 70% of people will search in the store, but buy it. They're on their phone. You see it when you're walking through the grocery aisles, right? People are looking, trying to compare prices or do things.
What are your thoughts on how big it can be?
We get 34 million of our customers through on a weekly basis, and they're coming through our stores. And Brian and I have talked about this. The greatest opportunity sits in terms of how we bring digital platforms into our stores. So digital signage in particular, and how do we program customers' experiences are going through our stores, as he was alluding to as well. A lot of the things that are in our stores right now that are advertising are still on paper. And it's a big capital investment to put all the digital screens in the stores. And then where's the singular ad server? So that I have one version and I hit the button, and then I've got a format for the fuel tanks on our gas stations, and then I've got a format for the deli counter, and then I've got a format for the cereal aisle. It's just a really disorganized media environment right now in terms of being able to execute in-store at scale from a digital perspective. And once we crack that, I think you'll really start to see a nice shopping environment. There are some retailers outside the US that are doing a much better job of this. And a lot of it is because they were very purposeful in how they thought about pulling digital signage, starting with what's the Wi-Fi capability, and how do you pull digital signage throughout the store and have it accompany the customers as they go through. And that is coming to the US. It's been identified many times as being the big opportunity, but it's still hard to find a solution for it.
Why wouldn't, instead of doing digital screens in the store, Why wouldn't the capability be unique to each person's own phone that they have? I feel like that would be a CapEx opportunity, improvement, or savings.
You raise a great point. So the first thing to go back to is I think everybody's trying to enhance the consumer experience. For the retailer, one of the most valuable assets they have is their loyalty data. So to your point, I think every retailer's ambition would be to get as many people using their application to be able to use that and have a seamless experience, right? From your phone to the in-store to digital. But that is a heavy lift. It's not as easy as it sounds because most retailers are not technology companies by nature. So you have to develop those programs and build those teams. I think it's a journey that people are going on. Kristi raised a great point in terms of it's different all over the world. What I do think we're getting better at is learning from one versus the other, understanding the customer experience and trying to make it seamless. We acquired a company a year ago to try to enhance the in-store capabilities to reach what Kristi's ambition was, that, hey, can I have one thing that ties this all together? Because it's very difficult if you have different features and things. It makes it hard for the retailer to manage it, and it makes it even harder for the brand to be able to buy it. And that's what we're trying to solve, is how do we connect the pipes? Retailers are being incredibly thoughtful, rightly, and thinking about how they bring these things and these experiences, not just to please the brand, but to please the consumer as well. Does it enhance the experience and make it better to shop?
They're nowhere without the consumer.
Any retail media growth is predicated on pleasing the consumer and getting them to come back to the store, increase their basket sizes when they're in. It takes the consumer experience, and you can imagine how that would impact if a retailer went in and suddenly had 22 ad slots on their page that detracted from people buying goods and services.
Kristi, it's almost like, to Brian's point, it's like it's happening, but it can't appear that it's happening, right? Did you find that to be a challenge? Do you still find that to be a challenge? How do you handle that?
The most important thing is that it be done in the spirit of the agreement that we have with our customers for how we're going to serve them and how they agree to provide their data and what we do with it. And so there is a really important balance that we always try to strike in terms of how many ads do you serve to make it accretive to their experience versus a detriment to their experience. And we take a lot of time to make sure that we're balancing that. So we work with our CX digital teams who are responsible for our app experience and our site experience very closely to make sure that we have the right balance. We will test how many ads is appropriate to serve versus what's too many. We look at what other retail media networks are doing to understand. You can take away from that what they're learning in their testing as well. But it is a constant conversation about what to monetize and where to monetize. We do things like, if you run ads at the very bottom of the page, you have to assume at that point that customer is now exiting their digital experience. And so is there a way to monetize that as they're exiting and serve them ads that maybe don't have to do with the food and the products that they're looking to buy from us, but that's where you'll see a lot of non-endemic activity as well. So there's a lot of design and thoughtfulness that goes into it. To your point, we're nothing without our customers. And if we breach our agreement with them in terms of what kind of experience we want to create for them, we hurt the total business. And that's not our intent at all. And that's something we're very careful about.
Brian, when you have customers who don't have a retail media network, and then they're like, they wake up and they go, we're ready. And they call you up. Hey, we're ready. How does that work? What happens there?
We've done a great deal of work on our side to help bring people along the journey. Our business is a technology platform, but we'll bring services if needed, right? So if they need certain services to help them build, but those are modular in the approach. You can pick and choose what you feel works best for you. With someone as established as Kristi was with Albertsons, when we were fortunate enough to be selected as a partner, Kristi had an established business. So that's a much different discussion, which that is a year-long conversation to make sure that the integration works properly, very in-depth with her technology team, with my technology team, because you have to make it seamless to the consumer and to the business when you're going through that. Both Kristi and I are passionate on something like standardization. How do you make it where you can somewhat standardize between these different retailers
I can add to that too, as somebody on the retail media side. Criteo is actually sitting in a really good position right now because they are an objective aggregator of retail media networks, and they can offer infrastructure for a smaller retail media network in particular to be able to bring their owned assets, so their own media inventory, to market in a really quick, seamless sort of way without necessarily having to make an extensive investment into technology. And the mid and long tail in retail media, Christine, I'm sure you've seen this. And I call it everybody's got to get them one. Everybody's got to get them one of those retail media networks. And the mid and long tail is massive. And each retailer has a really unique role that they play in a customer's life. And so to be able to take advantage of all those really interesting life moments or shopping moments that different retailers represent through one platform is a really great advantage, I think, to advertisers. And to Brian's point too, he also can help the bigger retail media networks with standardization and other components that are really important to us. So not only can we tap into a bigger marketplace through Criteo, but Criteo can also offer a really nice, somewhat out of the box solution for a lot of retailers as well.
Our job, our only ambition at Criteo is to scale the category to its full size and potential and continue to go and help to bring retailers along that journey.
It's the rise and rise of retail media networks.
Indeed.
On that note, I think that we've covered so much, and you guys have been so generous with your time and your creativity and your thoughts. I really do appreciate it. I know that everyone will appreciate the conversation, so I thank you.
Thank you, Christine. It was really great to be here with you and to be here with Brian. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, amazing. Great to be both of you. Thank you.